So when I met with my doctor, we sat in his office for about 45 minutes, and I know I put him behind on his appointments, but we sat in his office for about 45 minutes, and he ended up giving me his cell phone number, and I texted him the 3 videos that I said, here, you're going to need to watch these and watch them in order. And I texted them out to him. Now he's on the Carnivore. Okay.
Wayne, how did you find Carnivore?
I found I didn't find Carnivore. Carnivore found me. And it's something that my wife had brought up a couple of times. Well, just to kind of fill you in on the backstory. I had been a martial artist, a kickboxer, a boxer. I had always been in shape, in the gym. I was always doing something active. And then about 10 years ago, 12 years or so ago, life started getting in the way. Work kind of took me on the road. I was traveling and I was eating, the American diet, and started putting on weight. And it got to the point about 4 years ago where my doctor was telling me, he said, look, your blood pressure is going up. You need to start thinking about getting your weight under control. So I started going back to the gym. We decided that we were going to eat better. And eat better means that we didn't go out to eat. We cut out a lot of the sugars and the breads. We had done keto one time back then, and for a period of time, lost a few pounds on it. But I found that with the keto, there were too many loopholes. And then the corporations got involved, and you go to the store and it said, you go down the aisle, the keto aisle, and you got this and you got this, and we can do this and we can do that. And it was the same stuff. We were right back to the same spot, and I was up to the point where I was 330 pounds. And my wife was worried about me, and I wasn't feeling good. I had a knee replacement on my left knee, had some injuries from when I was in the Army, but everything was just kind of coming to a head, and everything was, I was feeling sore, couldn't sleep well, blood pressure was up. They were putting me on medications, which I was not thrilled about because I'm not a pill taker. So going on and on and on. And I finally got to the point to where I was getting desperate, and I went to my primary care doctor and I said, look, what about, and this was at the Veterans Administration, I said, what about this gastric bypass thing? He goes, well, it's got a high failure rate. It's a surgery. He says, but it's something that you want to explore. He says, we'll explore it. I said, well, I've got to do something. Everything else is not working. I said, I've tried the MOVE program here at the VA, where they teach you how to eat with the food pyramid and all of that stuff. And it wasn't working. He says, okay, we'll look at that. But the VA, if you want to do something like that, they make you jump through a lot of hoops. And it just kept dragging on and on and on. And that's when the Ozempic started getting popular. And they had even sent me out to a endocrinologist for my low testosterone. So, and they put me on injectable testosterone, thinking that would help, and that didn't help. So approached the VA about the Ozempic, and they said, okay, you got to jump through these hoops and go through the hoops. And it was just dragging on and on. In the meantime, I was just feeling worse and worse and worse, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And then finally, the second week of September last year, second week of September 2023, my wife said, look, we're doing the Carnivore. We're going to do Carnivore diet. And I finally said, all right, what do we got to lose? What is a Carnivore diet? And I knew kind of what it was. It was just eating meat in that. And we have a freezer full of meat because we raise our own cows. We have our own beef, and we process a cow a year for my wife and I. And then we have chicken. So we've got eggs, we've got ducks, we've got duck eggs. We raise pigs sometimes, so we'll have pig, goats. So we're a farm. So we've got the meat. So there was really no excuse for me not to try Carnivore. So I said, fine. So literally, it was one day to the next day. The next day we started Carnivore, and we got the meat out. It took me, I don't know, 15 minutes to cook it, 10 minutes to eat it, and we're done. And I'm going, that's it. And I'm thinking, okay, when are we eating next? Because we have to have our next meal. So we would have meat later in the afternoon and we went through that for about like that for 2 weeks. And within that 2-week period, I dropped 15 pounds. Now, granted, most of it was water weight. However, it struck a chord with me. It was like, well, this is interesting. And then I started going down that proverbial rabbit hole because I have an inquiring mind. I want to know about things. So I started searching for YouTube videos and information and came up with all the same names that everybody else does. You know, Dr. Baker, Dr. Berry, Dr. Shafee, watched all of them. And I consumed and consumed and consumed and consumed. And it was just really amazing. Now, in my working world, I am a hypnotist, and I work with people on a variety of things. I deal with people that have anxiety and depression and panic attacks and confidence in you issues, stop smoking, sleep issues, dealing with past traumas. Because the main thing with people is that, and we all have it, it's the 6 inches between our ear. And you can make changes, and you can say that you want to make changes, and you can push that process through the power of willpower. But willpower is unsustainable. It's gonna fizzle out at some point, and you're gonna go into what I call an emotional shutdown, because it just takes too much effort to maintain willpower in something that you have to constantly think about and approach. Now, the benefit that I had was that I had already done hypnosis on myself. I already did self-hypnosis. I already, the sugars and the carbohydrates and all that, I could drop like that because I changed this up here. So when we started the Carnivore, that really wasn't the issue. What I had to deal with was the fact that we were only eating twice a day. And then we started the intermittent fasting. And we start eating at around 11:30. We'll have our first meal, and then we don't eat again until about 4:30 or 5. And if we don't make it by 5 o'clock, we don't have dinner, because there's sometimes that here on the farm that my wife is out and she's busy and she may not come in the house until 6:30 or 7. And I usually am the one that cooks. And in the past, it would take me 2.5, 3 hours to cook a dinner, because I would prepare this and I'd do the side dishes and this and make sure everything's done at the same time. And it was just exhausting. And with the Carnivore diet, that went away. I mean, literally, we could pull a steak out, put it in a tub of water, and in about 30, 35 minutes, it's thawed out, and we're ready to slap it on the grill, sear it up, cook it, and sit down and eat that rascal, and then move on. And the other thing that we had to get over was the fact that eating a meal was no longer an event. It was no longer the centerpiece of sitting down and having this, and we got to have this in our palate, and that went away. We ate to sustain and nourish our body, and that was it. It was not, it was not an event anymore. And it's like I tell people, because like I said, we've got cattle, and they eat grass, they eat hay, and we'll give them some cow cubes and stuff, but they eat cow food. And I have never had a cow come up to the fence line when I'm standing there looking at my cattle and say, "Hey, I want a pizza." They just don't do it, because they eat grass. So I kind of look at that and go, look, and like Dr. Berry said, it's the proper human diet. This is what you eat. And we've been conditioned to eat all this other stuff because the corporations have come into play. They've created all of this fake food because they want to increase sales for one thing or another. And you don't need, and it's not nutritious. It's not nutritious. So as I went on this journey after that 2 weeks and I started continuing to eat the carnivore, I started dropping weight. I mean, I started dropping a lot of weight. And there was one day, there was 1 week in there, I think it was October, November, sometime in November, I hit a plateau where I didn't lose anything for a couple of 3 weeks. And I said, well, I don't like this. So I said, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a 3-day fast. And I'd never, the thought of not eating for 3 days it was like, well, that's not going to happen. Okay. So I did the 3-day fast, went through it very well. The next couple of days, all of a sudden it kicked in again and I started dropping weight again. And by January, now I had seen my primary care doctor in August of last year. Okay. I was 330 some odd pounds. My next meeting with him was in January of 24. And by that time I was down about 60 pounds is where I was within that period of time. And understand that this was with no exercise. There was no exercise involved. So I walked in and I purposely did not buy new clothes. I wore the clothes that I had, and those rascals, I mean, I would have to put a belt on to hold the pants up, and I looked, I looked like a bum or something because the clothes were just hanging on me. So I went into the doctor and he came out and he stopped and he looked at me. He goes, "What in the hell happened to you?" I go, "Well, it's interesting that you asked." So he did the examination, looked at my blood work. He said my blood work was perfect. At the beginning of October, I quit all of my medications because my blood pressure stabilized at about 124 over 86, 87, something like that. And I quit all the medications. I just quit it. And now my 30-day average is 123 over 82, something like that is my blood pressure. I don't have any pains. My energy is wonderful. I sleep better. I still have issues with sleeping. They thought I was pre-diabetic. That's a non-issue at this point. So everything started correcting. So when I met with my doctor, we sat in his office for about 45 minutes, and I know I put him behind on his appointments. But we sat in his office for about 45 minutes, and he ended up giving me his cell phone number. And I texted him the 3 videos that I said, "Here, you're going to need to watch these and watch them in order." And I texted them out to him. Now he's on the carnivore. Okay. Oh, yeah. So now he's on the carnivore diet. My chiropractor is on the carnivore diet. I've got family members that are looking, because when I went back in, it was for Thanksgiving. I went back up to North Texas because I live in South Texas, and they couldn't believe the amount of weight that I lost. It was like from one day to the next, it was like a magic mirror type of thing, Alice in Wonderland. So they started inquiring, and it just, I continued and continued. Now, right now, I'm sitting about 85 pounds less than what I was. I'm about 248, something like that. Now I've still got about 25 pounds to go down to what I call my fighting weight, which is around 220, 215, 220. Because when I was a kickboxer and boxing and that's the weight that I was at. And I feel good at that weight. Any lighter than that for me is just, I'm 6 foot tall and I'm too thin at that point. And I'm a big guy anyway. So now the process is getting back into the gym and start building some muscle. But I got to tell you, exercise was not an issue. I mean, it was not even a consideration. I didn't do it. I didn't have time. I was doing too many things. And I started back and I didn't follow through and blah, 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 you know, that whole thing, but I still dropped the weight. And when I first got down to where I lost, when I was down 45, 50 pounds, I was telling a person this story, how I started. It was an emotional experience for me. And the reason it was an emotional experience is because I thought I had failed at being able to control what I was eating and doing the right things. And it's, oh, you got to reduce the number of calories and increase your effort and this, and, you know, that whole thing. And it's like, because that's what we were taught. That's that logically, if you look at it, that's the way that it should be. And it wasn't until I really watched Dr. Chafee's video on the food scam, the how the food industry does their foods and how they create this synthetic food and how it causes people to gain weight and that. And it was just, and then really that really hit me hard, because I said, it's not my fault. Not my fault. Now, here's the thing as well. As a hypnotist, I worked in the past with helping people lose weight. Okay. And they would come to me and I would tell them, look, you need to increase your activity or that. And I am at 300 something pounds. And I'm trying to tell somebody how to lose weight and get healthy, but they're following it. But the plan that they come into, because hypnosis in of itself will not cause you to lose weight. It just won't. But what it does do is it changes this up here on how you deal with sugars, how you deal with carbohydrates, how you deal with late night snacking, how you stay within it, how you deal with overeating, mind-body connection, and all of that. That's where it comes into play. But you have to have the right plan in order for those things to fall in place. And if you start doing the Mediterranean diet or the grapefruit diet or something like that, you might lose a few pounds on the front end, but it is unsustainable. It is absolutely unsustainable. And about a year ago, I suspended working with people on losing weight because it was just, it wasn't working. It wasn't getting the results that I knew that it should be. But now that has flipped, because when I work with a person that wants to lose weight, one of the things that they have to agree to is that they're going to do the carnivore diet. Because if they don't do the carnivore diet, I will not work with them, because I know that ultimately they're going to fail. And when they fail, it's just going to be something else that they're going to blame that it failed. Well, I tried that and it failed. And that's not the case. You know, it's just not the case. So when I was losing all of this weight, my wife, you know, she lost 35 pounds along the process. And it's just how we eat now. We don't eat any other way. It's not normal for us to eat any way else. Now, there are times that we'll go travel. We end up not sticking to that. We'll eat something that we're not supposed to. And trust me, the body lets us know that we screwed up. Okay. It lets us know that we screwed up, because it's like, okay, I'm glad we have 2 bathrooms in the house, because, you know, we're both going to be in it if we didn't eat correctly. But you know what? We don't beat ourselves up with it. We have our base of how we eat. And we just go back and this is what we're doing, and this and this and this and this and this. And we may go off of it, you know, once a month or something, that because we're out and we're traveling up north with friends or family or whatever. But we'll monitor. I mean, we're not as heavy into it. We don't do desserts very, very often. So that's not an issue. But it's continuing to lose the weight and continuing to feel healthy. And people who meet me now who haven't seen me in a while, they're going, "Oh my God, you look amazing." And I go, "Well, thank you." You know, I mean, it's that big of a difference, and it's really nice to hear that from people, but more so than that, I know that I have a plan going forward from this day forward. And it's a simple plan. And anybody who says that you can't, well, I can't do this and I can, yeah, you can. You just change this up here. That's all you have to do. And I tell people, look, if you can't change it on your own, because look, you don't need me. If you get right down to brass tacks, you don't need me. But if you do, if you need that help to get through that, to stick to this, then you better come find me or find somebody like me to help you to get this up here squared away, because your relationship with food goes back to when you were a kid. And when I say that is, you sat down for dinner, you eat everything on your plate. You're not getting up until you eat everything on your plate, and you've got this and you got this, and you're going to eat your vegetables. You're going to eat this and this and dot. And we're trained to eat that way. And it's really a shame, because you're forcing kids to change the way that they naturally eat. They know how to eat. They're full, they're full. If they don't like something, they don't like something. And it's not this, well, you're going to eat this and eat everything on your plate. Just feed them meat. It's real simple. But when you have kids that are 10 years old and they're pre-diabetic, something's wrong. Something is wrong with our society. And my wife and I, we were driving down going through town yesterday, and I told my wife, I said, look at all the restaurants around here. I said, if people ate the way that they were supposed to eat, 95% of these restaurants would not exist, because every one of them are serving fake food. It comes down to meat, some eggs, maybe a hard cheese or two, and that's it. But they want to turn it into an event, and that's the worst thing that you can do to yourself, is turn that into you eat to live, not live to eat.
Yeah, I mean, I find, honestly, social interactions are way more enjoyable when it's not kind of adulterated with having to have a meal with it or something, like when we have to have this big restaurant event and stuff,
Right.
like it's better just to enjoy people's time rather than,
Absolutely. Well, the thing is that if you have all of these different sides and everything, you feel obligated. You have to eat them. You may be full. Your stomach may be screaming at you and say, look, you're done. And you're going, well, I haven't touched the potatoes over there. And I gotta have the potato, and then I gotta have this. And, well, they brought the cake out, and I gotta have a piece of that. So it's just stacking things on top of things on top of things on top of things, and there's no need into it. I mean, literally, when we started, my wife and I started, we would fix ourselves a steak apiece, and after about a week into it, we got to the point to where we'd take 2 bites of it, and we were full. And we couldn't finish it. It was like, we could have split the steak. So, and that's what we got. That's the way that we got to, from that for a little while, is we just get a steak and we'd split it, and we could barely finish the half that we each had, because we were in ketosis, and the body was doing its thing the way it was supposed to be doing, and eating on the fat storage. And Lord knows I had enough of it at that time. So that's the way it worked. And we did that for the longest. And now, if we leave something on the plate, some steak or whatever, then we take it and put it in the refrigerator, and we have it for lunch the next day. And there you go. And normally we'll pull out a paper plate, warm it up, and we eat standing up, and then we're off to do whatever we need to do. It's not an event. It's yeah, we need to feed the body, but feed it and let's go. I mean, you just watch cows. If you watch cows, they go out and they'll eat the hay, eat the grass, and then they go and lay down a little bit. They'll get up and walk around and that, and they'll graze here or there, and then they'll come back to the hay, and then they lay back down. And I mean, they don't jog around the pasture, say, hey, I need to get some exercise. It's very simple. Goats are the same way. I mean, it's just watch the animals. Do what the animals do. They eat a certain diet, and we should be doing the same exact thing. And the thing is meat. Now, here's what happened. Here's an interesting thing. I went into the doctor with my wife. She had an appointment. She had her blood work done. Her cholesterol was a little bit high. And she asked me to go in to her doctor with her. And I said, yeah, I'll go to your doctor with you. So we go into the doctor. She comes back there. She goes, well, your cholesterol is a little high. We need to put you on a statin. At which time I chimed up and said, well, that's not going to happen. She's not taking the statin. And she goes, well, I think that's up to Mrs. Walker. And my wife goes, well, I'm not taking a statin. I said, well, there's an echo in here. Okay. So she's trying to explain to the doctor that we're doing the carnivore diet, that higher cholesterol is normal. That we've read the studies, we've listened to doctors, and high cholesterol is not a precursor to heart disease or that. And there's studies have shown that, there's no difference in lifespan and blah, 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 blah. And she goes, well, you have to be taking a multivitamin. I said, well, we get most of the vitamin C that we need from the beef. And the doctor looked at me and says, you can't get vitamin C from beef. And I said, I don't think that's accurate. And I use those exactly. I don't think that's accurate. I didn't call her a liar. I said, no, that's not accurate. She goes, no, you can't. I said, okay. So she gets up and walks out. So I got on Google and pulled it up. And there you go. It said, but you get X number of amount of vitamin C with beef, and this, it converts it and blah, 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 blah. So I'm waiting for the doctor to walk back in. And my wife says, don't say anything to her right now. Just let her do it. Let her think what she wants to. Just leave her alone and just let's get the hell out of here. I said, all right, sweetheart, that's fine. Because I'm not a betting man. I don't bet. I don't gamble. However, if you ever hear me say, I'll bet you, you're going to lose the bet, because I do sure things only. And if I'm talking about something, you can be darn well satisfied that I've researched it and I know, and I've looked at it 6 ways to Sunday. And you better come loaded for bear when you want to argue with me about certain things. Now, if I don't know about something, I'll tell you, look, that's not something I know about. But if you'll give me a week or two, I'll catch up with you on it. Let me do some research, and then I'll get into it. Because the main thing with the carnivore diet, I found it, is you have to become militant in what you want to accomplish. And it's like Dr. Berry says, is you have to have your why. And once you understand what your why is you have to be singularly focused, and you have to be militant in your approach. You can't let the peripheral stuff come in. You can't let the naysayers come in and say, hey, you're crazy for doing this and da, da, da. None of that matters because of the results. There's too many people watching your channel. There's too many people that have had success and said, look at me, this is what I did, and these are the results. That's real world information. That's not a study. That's not data that somebody can manipulate. That's not climate change numbers that you change over here to make it look like it. It's real world information. And I can tell you that we achieved the same exact thing. 2 + 2 is 4. And that's what it is. It's 4.
That's awesome. I'm really happy for you and your wife that, and you're eating the same way as you had been before. You're keeping that window with the 2 meals in there.
Yes. Yeah, we eat. I'll eat about noontime, and then around about 4 o'clock, we've usually pulled out our meat, and then I'll cook it up. And my wife will cook it if she wants it seasoned a certain way. We use, put a little seasoning on the steaks, or we may do the hamburger balls or whatever with bacon, or that we'll get creative with some of this stuff. Sometimes we'll do the chicken with the dredged in eggs, and then the pork rinds, and put them in the air fryer. And, so we do that. And what I do there was we'll go to the store and we'll get the chicken thighs because we like the chicken thighs. My wife does. I mean, I'll eat any part of the chicken that I can get my mouth around, but she likes the chicken thighs. So I'll bring them home and I'll debone it, and then I spread them out on a cookie pan, and then I put them in the freezer to let them freeze, and then I'll pull them out of there so I can break them apart, and then I just take them and throw them in a Ziploc bag so that I can pull out one or two or whatever and thaw them out, and that way I'm not having to thaw out a bunch of them at one time. And that's the way I do all of the chicken and that, so we can just go through. And even the hamburger patties, I'll do hamburger patties and then do the hamburger patties, same thing, and then take them off the cookie sheet, put them in there, and they're just loose. They're like individual hamburger patties. Pull them out and thaw them and make it easy to do. And then you know, I make beef jerky because I had roast. I'm not a big roast guy, so I got a bright idea one day. I said, "How am I going to turn this roast into beef jerky?" And I probably did 15 pounds of roast and got a dehydrator, and I made beef jerky and gave it to some people or some family. Go, "Oh my God, this is wonderful!" So I ended up giving a lot of my beef jerky away. So now I've learned to keep my mouth shut. So I just make it and I put it in the freezer, and that way we've got it. So we'll grab that for a snack. And the other thing that we do is deviled eggs. I'll get a bunch of eggs and then do the deviled eggs, and I'll usually do about 48 eggs and put them in the refrigerator. And then if we get a snack or we just want something to eat, we'll go in there and just grab a deviled egg, and that's what we'll have. It's got some bacon on it and it's real easy, and it satiates us, you know. And there are times when we'll have a couple of deviled eggs, maybe at 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then we'll get down to 4:30, and my wife will go, she goes, "Are you hungry?" I go, "No." She goes, "Okay, then," and we won't eat dinner. I mean, and then we just go the next day, and it's not a big deal. But
how awesome is that? How awesome is that? That carnivore is this thing because it's so nutritious. You can have a snack, and then it's like,
yeah.
I don't need to eat anymore.
No, not at all. Not at all. And the same thing with the beef jerky. You get a couple of pieces of beef jerky, and I'm either drinking sparkling water here. It's unsweetened, flavored sparkling water, and I'll put a little bit of salt in it, or I have a electrolyte that we drink. I do have iced tea that I'll drink, but I put some salt in it, and so I'll put a thing of Trivia in it, the plant-based sweetener type thing, and that's about the extent of it. The only dairy that we have is we have a heavy cream, and we'll put that in our coffee in the morning. And I'm a 2-cup coffee kind of guy, and that's about it. I'd have 2 cups in the morning, and I'm done. So it's very rare that I have coffee outside of that time period. But most of it is just water, salt. I mean, and if you try to drink a soda, it's too sweet. It's nasty. And you just know that if you listen to Dr. Berry and Dr. Chafee and what sugar does to you, and Dr. Baker, it's like, why would you do that to yourself? It's like smoking. Why would you do that to yourself? That there's an issue if you smoke. I mean, you're upping you're strangling your airways and body and all of that stuff. Why do it? Be healthy, but protect your body. And now what the carnivore diet, what has it done is it has given me a way to fully take charge of my health, is what it's done. That's exactly what it's done. Because with Dr. Berry, it was learning about the blood work, learning to read your blood work. I got his book. I went through that. I marked it up. And I went back to my doctor and said, I want this test, this test, this test. And my doctor said, well, we don't really need that test. I said, I'm not interested in what you think I need. I'm telling you, I want this blood test. If you're going to stick me, just put the extra line in there and say, hey, test for this. That's all you got to do. Real simple. It comes back at the same time. And here's the interesting thing too. When they put me on testosterone, my testosterone level 3 years ago was like 150 something, really low. So they put me on the injectables, and I was doing it once a week. No, I take that back. It was once every 2 weeks. Went back to the endocrinologist, and it went up to like 200 and something. And it just wouldn't go above that. And when I started the carnivore diet, I decided, you know what? I'm not doing the testosterone anymore. I'm not doing it. I had my testosterone tested. They tested my testosterone last week. And my testosterone came back at 592. And that's the highest that it's been in the last few years. And I just about fell out of my chair when I looked at those results. And I know when I go back to my primary care next week, he's gonna say this is incredible. Because and the other thing is that last week, like this earlier in the week, I had an appointment with my cardiologist. And understand this, I did not tell my cardiologist that I quit all my medication. Okay. And he had not seen me since July of last year. So when I walked in there, they took my weight. I was at 248. And the nurse that was doing it, she just wrote it down and then put me in the room, took my blood pressure. My blood pressure a little high there in the doctor's office, which is normal because they just rush you in, you take it. And so I don't look at it because I keep track of my blood pressure on my phone. I record it. Every time I take my blood pressure, I record it on my phone. So the nurse came in. She says, okay, did you bring your medication? I said, no. She goes, well, why not? I said, because I'm not taking it anymore. I said, I haven't taken it since the end of September of last year. And you would have thought that she just took a bite of a dog poop sandwich. I mean, she just couldn't believe it. And she goes, okay. She goes, why haven't you taken your medication? I said, there's no reason to. I said, my blood pressure stabilized. Why would I take it? I said, I'm doing the carnivore diet. And she sat in there, and for 30 minutes, I talked to her about the carnivore diet. And by the time she was leaving out of it, she goes, you know what? I know a lot of the doctors, they just want to give pills, and the pills don't work, and this, and this is great the way you're doing it. So I had an advocate. And then when she walked out, the doctor walked in and he sat down. He did not ask me. He didn't say anything about my weight. He didn't ask me about my diet. He just pulled his little piece of paper out and says, well, let me explain to you why you need to take, your medication. I said, all right, doc. I said, look, I've lost a lot of weight. And he goes, yeah. And it's like he was almost disappointed. He goes, yeah, I know. That's what the nurse said. And I can see it. Says, he goes, I got to tell you, he goes, it's really commendable. That's really nothing short of amazing because 99% of the patients won't do this. And I said, but you're going to bring up the statin. You're going to bring up this. Not going to happen. Ain't taking it, not taking it, not taking it, not taking it. And he goes, well, okay. He said, I can't force you. I said, no. I said, and I appreciate you not arguing about it because it's an argument you're not going to win because I'm not taking it. There's no reason for it. I said, I'm on this carnivore diet. My blood work is perfect. And then he asked me, he says, well, does the VA have your blood work? And I said, yeah. He goes, we'll call and get the blood work. But the last time he saw me, in their records, I was at 233, I think it was, or 333. And I was 248 when I walked in there last week. So, you can't argue with success. You can't argue with results. You just can't. I mean, especially when it's staring you right there in the face, you can't argue with that.
Yeah, I like the nurse's reaction.
It was really comical. I mean, it was really, really. But you know what? In one hand, I'm not surprised because I feel that if we're bold enough to share with people what we're doing and the passion in which it is, in which we approach it, and we say, look, here are the results, that's contagious. That causes people to want to sit up and say, well, tell me more. Now, whether they go with it or not, and my standard thing is, hey, give me your email. I'll send you some videos to watch, YouTube videos, watch medical doctors that will go through. And I said, you watch them in the order that I sent them to you, and then go from there.
So, you converted your doctor to carnivore.
Yeah.
What kind of results have you had just with friends that have said, "Oh, you're looking good," and you've sent them the videos? Has anyone jumped on?
Some have inquired about it. Most of the people that I come in contact with is very sporadic. I mean, we're not around a lot of people a lot of time. We have our own thing, and my business as a hypnotist, I deal with people that come in my office, and then I have clients across the country that I work with online, just like what we're doing here. Okay. But most of it is dealing with the clients that I have. And it's just it's really it's a new passion for me, if you will, because now I've experienced it, and now I can say, this is what you need to do. These are the results that you can do. Just give me 30 days, just 30 days. Just do what I ask you for 30 days. Now, look, I was a kickboxer. I was a boxer, started martial arts when I was 11. I was on the Army karate team in the military. I've owned martial arts studios. I've trained junior Olympic teams. I know how to motivate people. I know how to stretch people, to get them to go past their comfort without breaking them. Because you can take a person and stretch them so far, it breaks them, and they just disappear. And there's a very fine line in that, and everybody's different. And I come across two people, my clients, as, look, you're not here just to give me a couple of bucks and we're going to go through this process of hypnosis. I'm interested in your success. And I turn away, as a hypnotist, 10 to 15% of the people that approach me about hypnosis. And the reason I turn them away is they're not ready for it yet. They're somebody that, after I interview them, because I interview people very heavily, they're not going to follow my instruction. They're going to be a project. They're going to be somebody I have to fight. And if I want your success more than you want the success for yourself, then I'm not going to work with you. I don't have time for it. I don't want to deal with it. There's too many other people I can work with. And the other thing is I have an ego, and my ego likes success. So I like to work with people who I can have success with. So I feed my ego. So it's a win-win. Okay. I don't do what I do for the dollar. I've never been motivated. I make good money. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm well paid, but I do not do it for the dollar. I could care less about the dollar. And, there have been times that people can't afford everything that I charge, and I'll adjust the cost. If they want that success, if they got to get over this, because there's people that come in and they've been to doctor after doctor after doctor. They've been on medication. They've got the anxiety. They got the depression. They've gone through all this. They've been to the therapist, the talk therapist, and it's like, it's not working. None of it's working. And when they come to me, they go, Mr. Walker, you're our last stop. We've tried everything else. You're our last stop. And if after the interview I tell them, yeah, I'll work with you, I wish you had started with me, because I could have saved you a lot of headache. Because the whole thing with anxiety, depression, and all this other stuff that goes along with life and crap from the past it's not a pill thing. It's a reorganization thing. It's a reframing thing. It's a getting rid of this. And you know, if I can take a person and I can lead them into hypnosis, because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. I just kind of create the environment for them to go into it very comfortably and safely, and they've got, you know, a certain level of rapport and trust with me. And once I get them in there, things get accomplished. Because when you sit down with a therapist, a talk therapist, and they say, okay, tell me your problem, you're always going to hold something back. You're not going to tell them everything. And it could be because of shame or guilt or fear or whatever the case, but you're going to hold things back. And all you do when you go to talking about it, all you're doing is reinforcing it anyway. But when I take a person and I put them into hypnosis and I get them there, the one person they can't lie to is themselves. And if you can't lie to yourself, you have to deal with yourself in that process or in that hypnosis, that state of hypnosis. And there's many things, and I tell my clients, you don't need to tell me anything. I'll ask the questions that I need answers to. Other than that, all the details and all that other stuff, I don't need to know. I don't want to know. I don't care about it, because I'm talking about right now going forward, because there ain't anything that you can do about the past. And it's the same thing with losing the weight and the carnivore. You start today, you go forward, because I'm telling you, if you start carnivore today, in 7 days, you are going to have a certain level of success in that 7 days. If you start it and you become militant, you stick with that for just 7 days. And if you don't have that level of success, then you weren't following the program. You weren't following the program. It's not, well, it didn't work for me. That's no. You did the Twinkies on the backside. Don't give me that nonsense. You know what you did. All right. You have to be honest with yourself. It's very simple. Meat, eggs, and some cheese. That's it. That's it. You want some coffee? That's fine. Cut out everything else. Add a little bit, go 90 days and then add something into it to see how your body reacts to it. You're going to find that when you add it back, your body's going to go, nope, we don't need this mess. We don't need this. No. Okay, because it's not going to be right. You're gonna square and then do your the intermittent fasting. I enjoy the fasting. I mean, it's a very interesting thing.
You feel really good after you've been honest for over 12 hours.
Oh, you feel perfect. You can feel your body getting back to where it needs to be. And I tell you, doing a 3-day water only fast, that's a very, very empowering process. Aside from all the benefits in that, just from a psychological, mental state, it's a very empowering 3 days. Because you get to that 3 days, you look back on that, it's like, well, that wasn't too bad. And then you start thinking, I wonder if I can do 5. And then you start going down that rabbit hole and learning what the benefits of fasting. And this, who's that doctor? Dr. Fung, the one that
Dr.
talks
Fung.
about the fasting. Yeah, him. Yeah, I like him too. Okay, so you go down the rabbit, you educate yourself, you listen to these doctors. And it's like when I was in the Army, I had gotten to my post where I was reporting at Fort Benning, Georgia. And I arrived there and the sergeant checked me in, and that he looked at my DD-214, which is my military jacket. And I had everything in there. And there were my certificates from martial arts in there, my certificates, my black belt certificate, my this and this, my competition awards type things. And he goes, "Oh, you're a karate guy." I go, "Well, I've trained a little bit." He goes, "Yeah, there's a guy in our unit that does that. His name is Keebler. His name is Keebler." I said, "Oh, okay, cool." So I didn't pay it no mind, and I went to my area I'm supposed to go to, and I'm this. And he was on leave at that time. And about 2 weeks later, I hear this knock on my door, and I opened up, and this little short guy walks in. And he goes, "Hi, I'm Keebler." I go, "Oh, okay. Hey, Keebler, how you doing?" I'm Walker in this, because we just went by last names. So he goes, he said, "I hear you do karate." I said, "Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I do it sometime." You know, he goes, "Well, yeah, I do too." I said, "Oh, cool." I said, "Who'd you train under?" He goes, I'm self-taught." I go, "Come again?" He goes, "I'm self-taught." I said, "Really?" I said, "How does that work?" I mean, I mean, how does that work? So we had a conversation, and we had our little experiences with that. It didn't turn out good for him, but it was, I kind of look at it, with the carnivore thing, you have to educate yourself. You have to train for it. And when you get around people that don't know, and they say, "Oh, well, beef, you're going to get heart disease. You get that." Where'd you get that? What kind of data did you read that from? Can you show me the study where you've gotten that from, so I can catch up on that? Because I'm pretty educated. I listen to a lot of doctors and stuff, and it's like they're magpies. They repeat. They just regurgitate something that they heard somebody else say. That I had a cousin whose brothers, whose uncle, who had an aunt and had a friend over, and this is what they said. And it's like,
Mm.
okay. And
Yeah.
people are like that.
The classic one that you hear is, I knew a guy who went carnivore and he had a heart attack the next day. And it's like, heart attacks don't work like that.
Look, if you have a heart attack next day, if you start carnivore, then you had more problems going on before you started the carnivore diet. All right. When you can read studies, and when you can hear these doctors talk about how the carnivore diet can possibly abate or even reverse dementia, signs of dementia, because you're feeding the body what it needs, and the cholesterol is getting to the brain, and the brain is getting what it needs, and it's improving, then we've been sold a load of crap in this, not well, in this country and wherever you're at. I mean, in the world, all because of the dollar. And look, I live in a place in South Texas where we are surrounded by farmers. Right across the street from my house right now are fields and fields and fields of corn that's being grown, or it could be cotton, or it could be sorghum, or it could be whatever it is. And most of that corn is going to be processed and shipped across the water to someplace else. And we're going to ship corn in from someplace else to here. Makes no sense. Makes absolutely no sense. And it's just like the chicken industry. China has bought up so much of the processing plants here that the farmers will raise the chickens here. They box them up, they send them on a boat, and they send them to across the pond. They process them there, and then they send them back to us, rather than just processing here locally. And there's an issue with that. There's an issue with that. 2 years ago, I had a government official stop by my place at USDA, the agricultural department, and I was outside working off. Had just gotten off the tractor, and he came up and he said, "Hey, I'm so and so. I'm with the USDA. Just wanted to stop by, and I wanted to come on your property and take account of all the animals you got." And I go, "Excuse me?" He goes, "Well, I'd like to come on your property." I said, "No, you're not coming on my property. Why? Why?" He said, "Well, I just want to count the animals, what kind of animals you have, how many you've got. And, in case anything happens, we need to get in touch with you." I said, "No, the number of animals that I have is none of your business. You're not coming on my property. Matter of fact, do you have a business card?" No, don't worry about it. That's fine. I'll stop by later." So even then, there's some things that are going on that they have to stop this movement. This is a movement. This is a movement, because now you're starting to see a lot of stuff come out on different news programs, how eating beef causes this, and you do this, and you have to eat more fiber and all of this, and they're hitting it really hard. Now, they're not doing that just because, hey, we think everybody needs to eat fiber. They're doing that because people are starting to notice that we've done all of this stuff. We've done everything that you've told us to do all these years, and it ain't working. It ain't working. Period. It's not working.
Yeah. I think there's a concerted effort now to, kind of go back and say, well, yeah, it does work. It's important that you have the fiber. It's important that you have all this stuff because, yeah, they're realizing people are waking up.
Yeah. I mean, my cow does real good on fiber. It's got 3 stomachs. Okay. It goes in one end, comes out the other end. And what comes out the other end, I got news. If you've ever seen a cow patty when it hits the ground, it ain't pretty. Okay. But they do real good at growing and getting big and heavy and muscular and all of that. And when they're grass fed and I put them in the freezer, and when I pull them out of the freezer and put them on my plate, I'm getting all the fiber that I need right there, because they've taken care of all of that for me. They've just broken it down a little bit better than I could ever think about breaking it down. So,
yeah.
But what we're being told is it doesn't work, because if it did, we'd have healthy people everywhere. If everything that the doctors prescribed and all the pills worked and all of that stuff, then we would be in a utopia, and we'd be healthy, and we would be increasing our lifespan. We wouldn't have heart disease. We wouldn't have diabetes, and no, no, it ain't working.
I mean, prime example of that is look at a picture of the beach in 1960 and a picture of the beach in 2024, and that's all the evidence you need.
That's all of it you need. I pulled out grade school pictures when I was in grade school back in that time, and there wasn't a fat kid in the bunch, and the teachers weren't fat. I mean, they were not fat people, and I grew up on the Southern diet, fried this, fried that. I mean, and it was fried, but we fried it in pork lard, pure pork lard. And pure pork lard, what people don't understand is that when we process a pig, we keep all of the fat, because I render it down into lard, and then I put it in mason jars. I put it in the refrigerator. But pork lard has more amino acids than freshwater fish. It's healthier for you than it's a great fat. It's just like beef tallow. It's a good fat. And I do the same thing when we get a cow. I keep the fat and I break it down. And it's a simple thing to do. It's not hard. I mean, you can go to the butcher and you can get a bag of fat and bring it home, and in 4 hours have pure lard, and you've got something to cook with. It's healthy for you, and that's what we used to eat, and we had no problem. And when you have a loaf of bread, when I was a kid, if you bought a loaf of bread, if that bread wasn't eaten in about 3 or 4 days, it was molding. It started to mold. Now we had a loaf of bread that we didn't touch, sitting on the counter. It was left there for 3 months. Still didn't have mold on it. Something's not natural with that bread. If you got bread sitting out for 3 months and it doesn't mold, then there is something in there that you should not be putting in your body, because it's going to bind with something and it's going to cause problems.
100%. So, Wayne, how do people reach out to you? Do you have a website or some social media?
I have a website. I got a couple of websites. Is rmhypnosis.net. And then I also have a podcast where I talk about hypnosis and the carnivore diet together and the benefits of both. It's called the hypnolion.com is the website on that. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and it's the Hypno Lion's Roar is the name of the podcast. And then I developed a weight loss program based on the carnivore diet and utilizing hypnosis. And it's called Pounds Away. And it's poundsaway.com is the website on that. And I'm starting an online community to where I meet with people. It'll be a small group, meet with people once a week. We talk about the carnivore diet, how to stay with it. And then at the end of each meeting, I do a group hypnosis session with everybody based on a particular area of concern. And we meet once a month, or once a week rather. And it's a support group, and it's something you come into and you can go out of. It's, however you want to do it. I'm just getting that started because I'm passionate about helping people get healthy. There's people out there that need to lose weight because if they don't, they're going to die. And they're following the doctor's orders and they're not getting healthy. And the doctors are looking at them and say, well, you're just not doing what I tell you to do. And that's nonsense. That's nonsense. So I want to get them to the point to where they can take control of their health and get that control back. Because once they get it back, they're not going to let it go. Not going to let it go. Not going to let it go. So, and of course, people can reach out to me on the phone, but the best way is through my website. My email address is wayne@rmhypnosis.net. And I can be reached at that very easily.
No worries. Well, I'll link to those below. And Wayne, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. I watch your channel every time a new one comes out. I'm watching it because I love listening to people, and all it does is validate. And if people would just allow that to happen, they're not going to go back. That you can't, once toothpaste comes out of the tube, you can't get it back in the tube. It's out.